Have you met a Filipina online and are unsure if she's serious about you or just after your money? How about I share with you some tricks and methods these scammers use so you don't end up losing tons of money or after dating in a hotel end up maybe in jail. Of course, there are people all over the world trying to pry money from you in various ways. And if you're considering emigrating to the Philippines or at least exploring the area and the women as a tourist, you're likely going to use online dating to meet women. That's exactly why I will give you many tips on what to watch out for in a few seconds. And if you're still looking for a reputable website for online dating, I recommend you check out my interview with Marilyn, one of the Romance counselors at Christian Filipina. I've realized that Christian Filipina stands out from other dating sites because they really prioritize authentic connections. They are truly committed to helping people find meaningful relationships. And another note, even though I talk about scams in the Philippines, most scammers, especially when it comes to online contacts, are not even from the Philippines. Today, large international gangs operate across borders, and the Nigerian prince today works an 8-hour shift in an Indian call center. So the person you might be chatting with might not even be who they claim to be. Therefore, always be cautious and ask for plenty of proof. But let's get back to the main topic and start directly with the first scamming technique. Can you help me? You will meet hundreds of women from the Philippines dating online, and soon you have more chats than you can manage. And sometimes it takes a while before this scam attempt starts. A typical sign is when she starts asking for help, often in subtle ways. Little things about how life is tough, family problems, the child is sick, the phone is old and the charger is broken, school problems, or if she is more into drama, that she will soon be thrown out of her room because she cannot pay the rent. My God, I don't know where I will live. Please, please, can you help me, sir? This can indeed be a problem, but remember that most girls who tell such stories are true professionals. They are just waiting for someone like you, the white knight, to appear, ready to save the poor, young and pretty lady like a gentleman. While it's true that people can run into financial difficulties, that's part of life and can happen to anyone, but scammers specifically exploit these situations. What you need to understand is that if the question, "Can you help me?" comes up early in the conversation, it's a clear red flag, a no-go. Even if you've been chatting for a few days without her ever asking, immediate caution is warranted. "Can you help me?" is just one trick among many, because once you respond to it, there's no turning back. Your new friend will continue and try to draw you deeper into the trap. So, "Can you help me?" should immediately set off alarm bells for you. The best thing you can do in such a moment, no matter how pretty and supposedly sweet the girl is, end the conversation and block the person right away. It's better to be safe and not give room for such manipulations. The next scam often revolves around family events, as families in the Philippines are famously large. A classic example is the death of a family member, most often claimed to be the father. Such stories don't emerge right away, but after spending a longer period of time, often weeks or months, in chat to build trust. And even it might sound absurd, trust me when I tell you that there are cases where the same family member has died multiple times in the same chat. Yeah, this happens when even the scammers lose track because they chat for a long period with someone. But isn't that the same as the "Can you help me?" scheme, you ask? Why do they wait that long? The simple answer is that the goal behind it is to swindle larger sums of money for the funeral, as opposed to the smaller amounts requested with the "Can you help me?" scam. Filipino funerals can be expensive, often requiring amounts in the range of $200 to $300 or $400. This is a lot of money for Filipinos. You see, this tactic can bring in more money at once than the many small scams of the "Can you help me?" which bring maybe 100, 200 peso only. And imagine, the girl telling you this story doesn't just have you on the line, but dozens, if not hundreds of foreigners. It only takes a few who fall for the scam, and the scammer has enough money to live on for a good month or two. It's important to be aware that you're probably not the only one exposed to such stories. And trust me, there are numerous variations of these scams. The father has passed away. The grandmother is in the hospital and the bills are unaffordable. Another common story is that of the single mother whose child becomes ill, has a fever or worse, needs to go to the hospital. In the Philippines, it's indeed the case that treatments have to be paid in advance, as hospitals do not admit patients without upfront payment. So it's normal for the mother to be in need of a sum of like $300 or $400 before her child's treatment. In such cases, it might even happen that she shows you hospital bills to substantiate her story. But in the end, if you send the money, it's gone. Therefore, it's important to be cautious with requests for money. As hard as it may be, the best thing is to end the conversation as soon as financial help is requested. Moving on to the next scheme. You want to make sure the person you're talking to is real, so you'd suggest exchanging photos or doing a video chat. But suddenly there are problems. Her phone is broken, the camera doesn't work, the device is too old for the chat app you suggested, or the storage is full. Maybe she also says she needs to borrow a phone from a family member and doesn't want her photos to remain stored on it. The underlying goal, she wants you to buy her a new phone because you're the one who wants to see her. This young pretty girl who claims to be deeply in love with you needs a new phone. And of course she won't hesitate to subtly suggest that it needs to be a good Samsung or iPhone to take decent photos. Before you know it, you've spent a lot of money on a new smartphone without ever having the certainty that your feelings are reciprocated. And if you're being honest, these types of scams are relatively easy to recognize. It's always about money. Sooner or later, such demands come, and over time, what might have initially been exciting becomes only tedious and draining. Therefore, as soon as the person asks for money, you should end the chat and block them. There are thousands of genuine people who are truly interested in a real acquaintance. Another point on the topic of photos and videos. When you're exchanging photos, remember that normal Filipinas are rather modest and conservative. So if she suddenly sends you photos in sexy lingerie, bikinis or even nude photos, your alarm bells should go off, not just your hormones. The aim behind it is clearly to entice you to ask for more and ultimately pay for it, be it for an even better phone or other demands. Well, now you're probably wondering who falls for such scams and why it's still so lucrative for the scammers. And believe me, even people in the Philippines complain about online scams done in their name. Once again, the person you're chatting with might not even be a Filipina, but maybe George working for the operator of a criminal call center in Mumbai. That's why it's unfair to blanketly condemn Philippine women. And don't think the scheming ends here. A lot of girls lure you in for a few weeks or months and then play with the idea that she, although conservative, would like to wear something sexy for you, since you know each other for long enough by now. The question might arise whether you would like to buy her something sexy. Here again, it's about getting your money to flow. But often she already has outfits like the little schoolgirl or the sexy nurse, because she told you she used to work in a bar. Fantasies that appeal to many men are specifically exploited. But even you don't like the outfits she suggests, there's always the option for her to buy new ones for you. Or often she has a best friend from whom she can borrow something else for a bit of money. Or maybe this best friend will show it to you herself first. You see where this is heading. The goal is always to get your hormones acting instead of your brain, to get you to spend money. And remember, if your online relationship ends, the purchased items will be reused or resold. She still can make money from you. And again, once you get into such situations and start paying, it becomes increasingly difficult to escape this vicious cycle. It's important to stay vigilant and not to be misled by supposed emotional closeness or temptations. But I'm not done, because even she is not asking for help. Her family is healthy and she not even sends sexy photos or such. But one day she expresses the wish not to work in that establishment anymore. Yes, she told you right from the start, but all the time she looks decent, and it's understandable as hardly any woman likes to work in such an environment. You feel drawn to her and want to help her get out of this situation. She shares with you that she took this path only to provide for her family, but in truth wants to lead a normal life. She dreams of meeting a nice man with whom she can start a family. This revelation touches you as you see yourself as the white knight who can rescue her from her current life. She may be aware that you are employed and therefore cannot come to her quickly, because you do not have any vacation time. Whether you've told her or not, she uses this situation to her advantage. If she's lucky and you bite the bait, the distance and the fact that you cannot come to her for a long time play into her hands. She is experienced in this scheme and has had such conversations many times before. Therefore, let me say again, always be cautious with requests for money. In the case of the bar girl, she will certainly claim she needs to pay the bar owner, settle debts or similar. It's logical that there is a specific sum needed to rescue her from the bar. The fact is, in such cases you should end the conversation immediately. But you are in luck, everything works out, and then you were with her, enjoyed the vacation and the time spent together. Now you think things can only get better, so the acquaintance online is further intensified. And a few weeks or months later, while you're on cloud 9, you learn that she's pregnant and says the child is yours. And sure enough, it's precisely in the months following your visit. Despite the known risks, many men have unprotected sex or are not sterilized, and now you're faced with the consequences. The situation is presented in such a way that you will now start providing financial support because it's supposedly your child. If you're unlucky, she may later report complications during the pregnancy that require medical treatments or hospital stays. In this situation, you feel responsible and start paying, even though you haven't seen the child yet. Therefore, insist on a DNA test immediately if there's a claim of pregnancy to make sure the child is indeed yours. And if she goes to the hospital and sends you bills, it might all look legitimate and necessary from a Western perspective, but you should be aware that even a hospital stay for a simple young Filipina can be almost like a holiday vacation. She might have a private room with air conditioning and a comfortable bed, plus she can even bring a friend along, as having a companion in the hospital is usually allowed. Ultimately, you bear the costs, therefore caution is advised. And you'll surely notice the cases keep getting more extreme. But all of this isn't just fantasy. Such things actually happen when men aren't careful. You might find yourself with your partner in the Philippines and everything seems perfect until she accuses you of rape. Then it's your worst against that of a local. Just think about whose statement is likely to carry more weight here, that of a local or that of an unknown foreigner. How can you be sure she's not working with the police? Or you're here for fun? The girl in the bar is fun and outgoing. Suddenly she suggests a threesome. She has a friend and it seems to be no problem since you have enough money on you. The fantasies spiral and quickly you find yourself in a love hotel. And before you realize it, the police are in the room. Because the friend is actually underage and might even be working with the police. What a surprise! And even if you are lucky and the hotel visit ends happily for you, and you wake up smiling the next morning until you realize all your things are gone. Because while you were asleep, the girls ran off with your wallet, your iPhone and even your passport during the night. So how does one best prevent such situations? Fundamentally, you should always ask to see a photo ID as proof of the age. But hey, we're in the Philippines. Forgeries are easy to come by here. Therefore, it's much better to ask for a birth certificate. But you guessed it, even that can be easily forged for the eyes of a foreigner. My advice therefore is to find a good hotel in advance. There are plenty of hotels, especially in red light districts, so scout them and pick one you like. Scouting must include to have a chat with the guards and receptionists, because they will be the ones to keep you out of trouble. If you come to the hotel regularly with a companion and one time her ID shows she is 23, guards and receptionists know their clients very well and they can tell if a girl is really 23 or too young. They will kindly point it out to you or not even allow the girl access from the outset. Take my advice seriously to avoid problems. Also, when checking in, make it clear that any companion you take to your room will only leave the hotel together with you. Remember what I just said about waking up to find everything stolen. So ensure that valuables like your phone, your wallet with cash and credit cards cannot be stolen unnoticed. It's always better to make sure that a casual acquaintance leaves the hotel only together with you the next morning. And if necessary, that the staff hold her back while waking you up. And make sure she knows this, because at the moment you might notice a sudden change in behavior on her end. Again, it would be time to rethink your stay and maybe look out for a better match. And yes, you can see for yourself, all of this is doable. You just need to know it and put it into practice. Especially if you're here for the first time or in an unfamiliar area, you should definitely pay attention to these tips. It's perfectly fine to go to the red light district, but it's important to know in advance which establishments are recommended and which ones you should avoid. Just remember, here in the Philippines, but also in many other poor countries, even with $5, a person can live quite well for a day or two. So if your new acquaintance steals only $30 from you, she practically gets a week off from the not so rosy life in the red light district. Not to mention if she steals your iPhone. That's precisely the reason, because you think you can save $20 by opting for a cheaper hotel. It can end up costing you much more in the long run. And I haven't even touched on the worst case scenario for men waking up in the hotel after a few beers only to realize the sexy girl is actually a boy. But back to reality. If I've forgotten any tips, feel free to let me know. I would be happy to do a second part. Otherwise, have fun. Remember to check out my interview with Filipina if you're still on the lookout. And to keep it from getting too long, I'll wrap it up now. See you in the Philippines. Bye bye from me.